everyone doing today? Alright, take 3, here we go. Hello everyone.
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome to our video today. One of the things that we wanted to cover for everyone is we've had a lot of questions from just friends and family that we've had is the process that we had to go through to get married in Morocco. So we really wanted to outline that process for everyone, and then we're going to break this down into a 2-part video. First, we're going to talk about what we had to do from my side on the American side as the foreigner, and then we'll talk a little bit about what Miriam's going to do on her side as the Moroccan national. But when we do the video, we're actually going to flip those because Miriam's side was actually a lot shorter and easier up until the point that I got to Morocco. So go ahead.
اليوم غادي نديرو فيديو على الوثائق او الاوراق اللي غادي تحتاجوا باش تزوجوا من اجنبي في المغرب. في الحاله ديالنا غادي تكون امريكي ومغربيه. دونك غادي نقسموا الفيديو على جوج ديال البارت. البارت الاولى غادي ندويو على الاوراق اللي غادي خص البنت في المغرب توجدهم حيت هادو ساهلين ودغيا غندوزو في هاد لابارت هادي، ومن بعد غادي ندوزو للبارت الثانيه اللي هي ديال الطرف الاجنبي والوراق اللي غادي يخصوكم او بروسيس وكلشي. دونك بقاو معنا وان شاء الله تعجبكم الفيديو.
So part of the thing that we're going to cover today as well is, you know, the documents that we needed along the way, and they had to be both translated in English as well as Arabic. And I did have to bring not only copies but also originals with me or notarized documents saying that they are complete and accurate. And then we also talked a little bit about, you know, the timeline that it took for us to go through everything, and then, you know, whether or not we recommend to use a lawyer or not, and where the lawyer comes into play inside the process for you.
دونك في هذا الفيديو اليوم غادي ندويو على التجربه ديالنا حنايا الخاصه، وكيف ما قلت لكم غادي نقسموها على 2 بارتس. واول حاجه بغيت نبدا بها قبل ما نبداو الفيديو هي انه من خلال التجربه ديالنا حنايا اون بريفيري ولا فضلنا انه يكون معنا محامي ولا محاميه اللي عاونتنا في البروسيس، حيت الشغل ما جابش معاه بزاف ديال الوقت. كانوا غير 3 ديال السيمانات، و3 السيمانات بطبيعه الحال ما كافيينش. دونك هذه غير نصيحه منا حنايا غادي توفروا بها الوقت والفلوس، واخا راه غتخلصوا المحامي ولكن راه غادي توفروا بها الفلوس. دونك هذه هي النصيحه ديالنا قبل ما نبداو في المراحل ولا الاوراق. اول حاجه غادي ديروها، اول حاجه هي غادي تمشيو للمحكمه ديال الاسره في المدينه فين غادي تزوجوا. حنا بالنسبه لينا كانت اكادير، دونك غتمشيو لمحكمه الاسره. كاين مكتب مختص بالزواج المختلط، دونك غادي تمشيو لتمايا غادي يعطيوكم واحد لا ليست ديال الاوراق اللي غادي يخصوكم وكل ورقه منين غادي تجيبوها.
So basically what Miriam was talking about is, you know, in order for us to start the process, Miriam had to go and find out the list of the documents that we would need on the Moroccan side that I would have to bring with me. Otherwise, you know, that would completely defunct the process of us trying to get through everything, because the timeline itself originally takes about 4 to 6 weeks to get married in Morocco, just because of the Moroccan process that has to go into play. So if you forget any of the documents that you need, you're just not only delaying the process, or you could completely stop the process itself, where you'd have to come back to the United States and get originals for yourself.
دونك بالنسبه للطرف المغربي الاوراق راه ساهلين بزاف، ولكن كننصحكم توجدوهم على اتساع قبل لا يوصل الطرف الاجنبي للمغرب، ودغيا تيوجدوا كاملين الوراق. كلشي اللي غادي تحتاجوا راه تيوجدوا في نهار ولا يومين وبالكثير كاع. دونك اول حاجه غادي تحتاجوها هي نسخه موجزه من عقد الازدياد وتكون مكتوبه فيها قصد الزواج، وهذه راه مختلفه على لاكت نيسونس العادي اللي هو عقد الازدياد العادي. هذه نسخه موجزه من لاكت نيسونس ديالكم كله. دونك كتمشيو تاخذوه من البلاصه اللي دزتو فيها. هذه اول حاجه. ثاني حاجه غادي تحتاجوا شهاده ديال السكنه، تمشيو تاخذوها من عند المقدم ديال البلاصه فين ساكنين، راكم عارفين لي بروسيدور ديالها. غادي خصكم صوره من بطاقه التعريف وتكون ليغاليزي، وغادي خصكم شهاده اداريه متعلقه بالمخطوبه او لا نسخه من عقد الطلاق في حاله الا كان الطرف المغربي ديجا مزوج من قبل. هذه حتى هي غتاخذوها من المقاطعه. واخر حاجه في الوراق غادي تحتاجوا شهاده طبيه تثبت خلو المعني بالامر من الامراض المعديه. هذه كيف ما قلنا غادي تمشيو عند الطبيب اللي هو مختص جينيكولوج وراه غادي يوجدها لكم، ولكن اكدوا عليهم باللي راكم بغيتوها للزواج باش يكتبوها فيها، كيكتبوا فيها قصد الزواج. 4 تصاور التصاور غير كثروا فيهم حيت غيبداو يطلبوهم ليكم اشاك فوا، دونك غير كثروا التصاور قد ما قديتو. واخر حاجه بديت كنقول اخر حاجه وتنزل هذه بالضبط هي اخر حاجه، السجل العدلي. السجل العدلي راه غطلبوه اون لين، راكم عارفين دخلوا كازي جوديسيال وطلبوه يوصلكم في المحكمه ولا فين ما بغيتو ديال المحكمه ديال المدينه فين ساكنين. دونك هادو هما لي الوراق اللي غادي يحتاج الطرف المغربي. ودابا غادي نبداو مع البروسيس ديال الطرف الاجنبي.
Alright, so the process in the United States, you really have to start this one probably about 4 weeks before you have your itinerary to arrive to Morocco, only because there's 4 steps that you really have to go through to be able to get everything done. And the first part of that is you need to have an FBI summary background check. You can, through that process, you can go out to the FBI website and they'll highlight the different ways that you can go through the process. And you can do it one of 2 ways. For myself, I went to the local sheriff's office and got my fingerprints completed, and then I filled out an online form, mailed everything in, and then probably about 2 to 3 weeks later they sent me the summary that I had a copy of. Another way that you can do that is you could actually fill everything out online electronically and then go to the US Post Office, and then they'll be able to submit your fingerprints electronically for you. So it just kind of takes the post office out of the step but still keeps them in. It's kind of weird. The second piece that you need is you need to have an original copy of your birth certificate. Once you have that, then I'd recommend making at least 3 copies of your birth certificate. They don't have to be notarized, they just have to be copies. And the reason why you want to have those is you will leave the copy of that along the way for them to keep into their records inside Morocco. And then if you were previously married, you have to have a notarized or an original copy of your divorce decree. I do recommend at least having 2 copies of that in case someone asks along the way to be able to keep a copy of it. And then the last piece of it is you have to have an employment letter from your current employer, and that'll talk a little bit about how long you've been with the company, how much money you make, how much you're projected to make in the next year. So there's a few things that you need to do prior to departing from the US to Morocco, and some of those things really help drive your itinerary as well, because you want your appointments set up so as you arrive to Morocco you can start the process immediately. The first thing that you need to do in that process is an appointment with the consulate, and through that appointment you'll get your certificate of nationality and your eligibility of marriage. We're going to go into on how to request your appointment at the U.S. Embassy for your nationality certificate and your eligibility of marriage certificate. So once you go out to the website for the U.S. Embassy, you're going to go in and here's the website itself. Once you go there, you're going to go in and you're going to request for U.S. Citizen Services. Once inside this location here, you're going to schedule the appointment for other services. Once you're in here, you're going to select which embassy or which country and then which city you're going to be requesting your services through. Inside this part of the system, we're going to go ahead and say that we want to make a new appointment. Here we're going to schedule an appointment for notarial services, because we need to have them notarize the information that we have. And then here's their calendar. The blue means that all of the appointments that they had for those days are already full. So this is where I would recommend that you go in and you request your appointment for the embassy at least a month prior to your arrival, so that way you can make sure that you schedule accordingly. Once you get your appointment, then you can go ahead and book your flights to be able to go to Morocco, because the consulate is the one that really you need to identify, a month or a little bit longer out for the availability of your appointment. The second one that you're going to do is you're going to go, we have another video for this one, and you're going to go online and request a criminal record check from the Moroccan Ministry of Justice, Morocco, and it's in Rabat. So it kind of works out that you're at the consulate and then you go to Rabat to get all the other information that you need, right? By ordering it early, it's available to you and it saves time, so once you're already in Rabat you can just go pick it up. Well, here's the next video of the process that you go through to request your criminal record check. For this portion of the video I'm going to show you the website that you need to go to be able to request your criminal background check through the Moroccan government. So here we have to go out to their specific webpage. Let me blow this up for everyone. You do have the option of being able to change the language that you need going into this. So I speak English, so I'm choosing English. Right here under the section of submission of the application, what you're looking for is, I am abroad, I am not a Moroccan citizen, so this is how I will start the process. From here, once I enter in their code to make sure that I am not a robot, right here I'm going to enter in all of my own personal information. Once I have all this information in here and I hit next step, here what it's going to do is it's going to ask me for attachments to upload. The attachments that they're requiring me to upload are copies of my passport. Ensure that you have all copies of every page within your passport, not just the biological page that has your picture. Once you have all of that information put in there, then it'll ask you to confirm all of the information. Once you confirm all of your information, it'll request on which way do you want that to be delivered. I chose to have mine delivered in person, picking it up at the office in Rabat, simply because us having our appointment or us going to the ministry early for confirmation, we were already in the city of Rabat.
دونك جون راه شرح بالنسبه للطرف الاجنبي اشنو خص يدار قبل لا يجي للمغرب، وشرح لنا نشرحوا في الفيديو منين غادي تجيبوا الوراق بجوج اولا باش تسهلوا عليكم وتربحوا الوقت. لي سيت اللي غادي تمشيو طومونديو منهم هاد الوراق. دونك كيف ما قلنا غادي تمشيو لموقع القنصليه هو الاول باش تطلبوا شهاده الجنسيه وشهاده الاهليه للزواج، راه تيعطيوهم دقه واحده. دونك هادو من الاحسن ياخذوا رونديفو في السي ديال القنصليه قبل لا يجي، حيت ما تيكونوش عندهم ديما لي دات ديسپونيبل، يقدر ما تكونش عندهم كاع شي دات ديسپونيبل في الوقيته اللي غيجي هو. دونك قبل لا ياخذ التيكي ديالو يدخل للسيت ديال القنصليه يشوف شنو هما لي دات لي ديسپونيبل، يبوكي لا دات ديالو مع الوقيته. اون فوا يدير هادي غادي يمشي ولا سواء نتوما براسكم تقدروا ديروا هذا الشيء ليه. دونك تمشيو للسيت ديال كازي جوديسيير ودومونديو ليه الكازي جوديسيير ديالو، تقدروا تسلموه سواء في المدينه فين غادي تزوجوا فاش يجي اولا في الرباط. حنا معاك كنا غنكونوا في الرباط انيويز، دونك قلنا نضربوا عصفورين بحجر، دونك دوموندينا باش نشدوه في الرباط. دونك هذا الشيء اللي كاين. وبالنسبه للثمن، بالنسبه للسجل العادي راكم عارفين 20 درهم، وهذه الشهاده ديال الاهليه للزواج how much was it roughly?
I think 20 dirham.
No, the eligibility for marriage.
The eligibility for marriage at the consulate, I want to say it was $100.
Yeah,
in cash, having to pay at the consulate.
Yeah, دونك يديو معكم الكاش فاش تمشيو تاخذوها، غادي تكون تقريبا 1000 درهم، ما فايتاش 1000 درهم باش تاخذوها.
So after you take your appointment in Rabat to do your criminal record check as well, the next part of the process is just wait and enjoy your flight.
تشد الطياره وتمشي للمغرب. دونك في هذه المرحله فاش تيوصل الطرف الاجنبي للمغرب، من الاحسن انزل ديريكتومون في كازا باش تربحوا الوقت كيف ما قلنا، حيت حنا كنحاولوا نعطيكم تيبس باش تربحوا الوقت. دونك اول حاجه حنا درناها وصل لافي باش وصل الغد اللي كان عنده رونديفو في القنصليه. دونك مشى للقنصليه الرونديفو ديالو كان مع الصباح، دونك خدا شهاده الاهليه للزواج مع شهاده ديال الجنسيه. ونهار ثاني مشينا للرباط باش ليغاليزيو هاد جوج وراق او ميم طون ناخذوا السجل العادي ديالو. دونك هو يشرح لكم هادشي تا هو بالانجلي. Go ahead.
All right, so once I arrived to Morocco, I flew directly into Casablanca, knowing that the next day my appointment was with the consulate to pick up my certifications. So we were able to spend the day together with her brother. Got to spend some time as a family and really get reacquainted really between the two of us, as we hadn't seen each other for a few months. And so it really worked out well. And the next morning we got up and Miriam's brother took me to the consulate, and then from there I was kind of on my own. For the appointment, I needed to make sure that I had the receipt that showed that I had the appointment itself. And then I also needed to bring my birth certificate, my passport, as well as my divorce decree. Once I went through the process of getting inside the consulate and everything, I just had to wait my turn. Really, waiting was the longest part. I think it took me like maybe 20-30 minutes, I think, total.
Yeah.
And then I got up to the window, they they asked the questions that I needed, took my paperwork. About 10-15 minutes later, they gave me back all my paperwork. I went and paid for my receipt, and then I was done. Once we finished that, next day we started early our drive to Rabat, simply because anything that we had to do on the Moroccan side, you couldn't set an appointment for it. It was more of a first come, first served basis. So we wanted to make sure that we had gotten up to the ministry early, so that way we could be in and out quickly. We arrived at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to notarize the consulate's paperwork. It took us a little while to find it. First we had the wrong address, and then when we did find it, it was kind of down an alleyway of where we went. One thing that we did want to give advice to everybody is there was a lot of people around the embassy that they know that you're American, or around the Ministry of Affairs. They know you're American and they know what you're there for, so they offer their assistance to help you. Really, if you pay them, you're really just paying for them to walk you over to the door, and you can do that yourself, because once you're inside, they can't come in anyways. So just find it yourself. Don't just say thank you and move on. You go inside. You just wait for a few minutes. They call you into the room. You give your paperwork. They stamp it. They do what they're supposed to do as far as notarizing it. And it's a really simple process. Taking probably no more than 30 minutes because we got there relatively early, and once we got all that done, and then once we left the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we then headed over to the Ministry of Justice, still in Rabat, and I went there to pick up my criminal record check. They only had one person in there that was working, so we ended up getting there right around lunchtime, and so I had to wait a little while. So the total process there was about 30 minutes. But it was a little frustrating for me on the inside because I speak horrible Arabic. And,
they didn't let me go in.
Yeah, and they wouldn't let Miriam come in with me at first. And so trying to work with them to get them to understand what I was doing. Finally, Miriam was able to come in probably after about 15 or 20 minutes. And then once the lady got there to print out the report for me and everything, it was pretty quick and painless. And it was 20 dirham to be able to get everything done. Once we finished there at the ministry, we drove back to Casablanca for the night.
دونك هادشي اللي كاين عندكم في كازا وفي الرباط، ومن الاحسن ديروا كل حاجه في نهار واحد، حيت راكم عارفين المقاطعه هذا تيسدوا مع 4 العشيه. يقدر ما تساليوش من كازا بكري وتوصلوا معطلين للرباط. دونك من الاحسن فرقوا هاد الجوج هادو على يومين. هادشي اللي عندكم ما يدار في كازا والرباط، ومن بعد غادي تمشيو للمدينه اللي نتوما ساكنين فيها. هادشي الا كنتو ساكنين برا ديال كازا ولا اكادير. دونك حنا شدينا الطريق من نهار الثالث ديريكتومون لاكادير. اول حاجه درناها من بعد ما وصلنا هي مشينا لعند العدول. قبل تمشيو لعند العدول نصيحه، اي حاجه شديتوها من كازا دونك كونوا كتخدموا مع شي مترجم محلف، صيفطوا ليه الوراق كاملين في الواتساب باش يبدا الترجمه ديالو. الوراق بيان سور لي باللونجلي. من الاحسن هكا باش تربحوا الوقت، حيت الترجمه كتاخذ من يومين حتى 3 ايام، وهكا ما غاديش تصدقوا معطلين. من بعد ما تيسالي هو الترجمه تيخصو يشوف غير الاوراق الاصليين صافي، وكيطبع لكم كلشي وتيعطي لكم. دونك كيف ما قلت لكم مشينا عند العدول ديريكت باش نقادوا شهاده اعتناق الاسلام. دونك واخا جون هو ديجا كونفيرتا هنايا في امريكان، ما عطاوش حتى شي ورقه الصراحه في الجامع، وما طلبهاش حيت قالت لينا المحاميه اللي كنا مكلفين قالت لينا راه ضروري غيطلبوها لك هنا تقادوا، واخا يعطيوك الورقه من الجامع غيخصكم تقادوا واحده اخرى من عند العدول تماك. دونك هادشي اللي درنا، مشينا عند العدول غادي يطلبوا لكم 7 ديال التصاور، كوبي ديال الباسبور ديالو وكوبي ديال لاكت نيسونس ديالو، وتيسولوه اسئله اللي هي بازيك غير باش تيشوفوا الواحد واش باغي فاهم الاسلام ومعتنق الاسلام عن قناعه. دونك تيسولو تيقول الشهاده الاركان ديال الاسلام، دونك شي حوايج اللي هما يا بازيك راه ما تيذكروش مع الناس. وعولوا على واحد 400 درهم، وهذا الشيء ما عندوش شي طريفه اللي هي فيكس. دونك تقدروا ديما تشطروا راكم عارفين المغرب كيختلف هذا الامر هذا من بيرو لبيرو من مدينه لمدينه. دونك هذه هي اللي كانت التجربه ديالنا حنايا في هذا باش ناخذوا الشهاده ديال اعتناق الاسلام.
All right, so once we got to Agadir, the city where we were going to get married, we had the first stop that we had to do was to go see the Ladul to basically certify my conversion to Islam. So once we got there and we received that conversion certificate of conversion, basically for me to get that I had to answer several questions. I had to repeat the Shahada again, but then there were some questions about Islam, why I was converting, stuff like that. And then for this appointment I needed to have 7 photos, which I took in Morocco because they had a specific size that we needed. And then I had another copy of my passport, as well as another copy of my birth certificate. That appointment with the Ladul was about 400 dirham. That was kind of negotiable. It wasn't a set in stone, so just be aware that you can negotiate at that point. And then the last step of the certification process for me was to go see a doctor to prove that I had a clean bill of health and met all the other requirements that were needed. So this is where your fiance or your fiance really be able to help you out to identify which doctor to go to and the process that you need to go through there. Each doctor is going to vary on what they charge you to get that certification done, but it's relatively
150.
Yeah, it's about a simple process, about 150 dirham to get it done.
دونك اخر حاجه غادي يبغيها هي شهاده طبيه. دونك تمشيو عند مختص ولا جينيراليست واكدوا عليهم باللي راه بغيتوا هذا الزواج باش تيكتبوا فيها قصد الزواج. دونك هادشي اللي كاين بالنسبه لي هوايا. دونك اي ثينك ذات واز ات. دونك اخر حاجه درناها جمعنا هاد الوراق كاملين عطيناهم للمحاميه. وهنايا فين كتجي المحاميه هندي فين كيكون الدور ديال المحاميه مهم جدا بالنسبه لينا حنايا. وكانت المحاميه ديالنا حنان يفضل تتفرجي في هذا الفيديو.
We love you.
so much. دونك هي شدات هاد الوراق كاملين وتكلفت لينا باش تاخذ لنا رونديفو عند البوليس والرونديفو في المحكمه. دونك الرونديفو ديال البوليس باش تيديروا معكم التحقيق ليكم بجوج نتوما، كيسولوكم اسئله اللي هي شخصيه على العلاقه ديالكم، فين تلاقيتو، فين خدام هوايا، شنو كيدير، المدخول ديالو. دونك اسئله شخصيه وعليكم وعليه هوايه. دونك فاش كتساليو هادشي كيشدوه هما داك الريبورت ديالهم تيصيفطوه للرباط. وهنايا هو اللي تياخذ الوقت بزاف، حيت هاد لونكيت هادي تتاخذ من 15 يوم حتى شهر، ويقدر كاع اكثر من شهر باش يرجعوها يصيفطوها للمحكمه، حيت هي اللي كتخول لكم باش دوزو للستيب الثانيه باش تمشيو تشوفوا القاضي. القاضي تيسول حتى هو اسئله اللي هي شخصيه، واش بغيتي تتزوج، واش مقتنع، بلا بلا بلا. صافي ومن تمايا كيأكوردي لكم باش تمشيو تزوجوا. كتمشيو عند العادل وتيجي بجوج الشهود. حنا بالنسبه لينا جا الوالد ديالي والاخت ديالي نجات. هاي من هنايا كنوجه لكم تحيه من هذا المنبر. دونك من تمايا كديروا لاك ديالكم ما تتسنيوها. دونك هنايا فين قلت لكم المحاميه نفعتنا بزاف، حيت البروسيس كله خدا لينا 8 ايام نهار الجمعه بالضبط سالينا وبجرة ومضاربين. ولكن الحمد لله كلشي داز مزيان، غير شويه ديال الصبر حيت it's worth it.
So pretty much up to this point you're able to control the timeline because you're setting all of your appointments for everything. We're able to be really proactive on going to the office that you need. And once we went through the duel and everything, this is when we met with our lawyer. Our lawyer was a really close friend of Miriam's, named Fahad. And we are so grateful for her and the time that she spent with us. And for us, the money was well worth spending because we were able to reduce the amount of time that we had to wait from the 4 to 6 weeks down to about 8 days. It was like pretty much exactly 8 days for us from the time that I landed to the time that we got married. This part of the process is where all of the waiting comes from. The first step in this part of the process is going to the local police department where Miriam lived and having to do an interview with a sergeant or a detective there, and they ask you a lot of personal and professional questions. And then he finished his report and he sends that report off to Rabat. All the cities in Morocco, right? But once it's up there, it can take up 15 days to a month to be able to come back. And we were very fortunate that through coordination with our lawyer and everything, that we were able to get ours back in about 3 days to be able to expedite the process for us. Once that process was done, then we had to take an appointment with the court to be able to go see the judge to certify all of the documents that we had, saying that they were all legal and that everything was complete before we went to the final step. This part of the process was pretty crazy for us because we were just sitting around waiting. We didn't want to make any plans to go do anything. We didn't want to be out of the city anywhere. So we were kind of just waiting around for the appointment to happen. And when Hanan called us to let us know, hey, the judge is ready to see you, she said he's ready to see you in 20 minutes. The only problem with that is I was 20 minutes from Miriam's house, which was 20 minutes from the court. So somehow we needed to make that happen, and thankfully we didn't get any accidents or get pulled over, but somehow we made that entire trip in about 25 minutes, and we double parked the car in the middle of the street and went running inside the courthouse, pretty much dove into the judge's office, sat down. He had a couple questions for us. We thanked him for his time and for waiting for us. And then from there, we went over to the Ladul. We called Miriam's family while we were waiting for some paperwork from the court. We called her family, and her dad and her sister came over and met us with the Ladul to be our witnesses for when we signed all of our official documentation for our marriage. So then we went up to the Ladul's office, the same one that we went to for my conversion. Went through all of the process. We said a few things. We established, what I gave for my dowry. For Miriam and everything, and then from there we were done. That part of the process cost us about 1,000 dirham. Definitely a negotiation piece to get that spot finalized, but after that, we were married, and we celebrated getting through the process as fast as we could. Our official day is December 31st, so we then drove to Marrakesh to enjoy the night. Not only to celebrate the new year, but also to celebrate us getting married. And that's pretty much our process that we went through. We'll put it down into the description, all the documents that you needed and the websites that you need to go to, as well as, if you guys have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them. We'll definitely be following up with you and, letting you know any questions that you have within the process. But the biggest advice I would say is be patient. Plan ahead, be patient, and we wish you luck.
دونك هذا هو الفيديو ديال اليوم. ان شاء الله يكون عجبكم. نصيحه واحده قبل ما نكلوتيغيو، ايفيتيو الموا ديال اوغست شهر 8 حيت كتكون فيه العطله القضائيه، دونك صعيب باش تقضيو حتى شي غرض في هذاك الشهر. دونك من الاحسن سواء قبل منه او لا من بعده، وجيبوا معكم شويه ديال الوقت الا ما كنتوش غادي تكلفوا محامي اكثر من 3 السيمانات باش يبقى لكم الوقت باش تساليو البروسيس ديالكم وديروا حفله او عرس او اللي كنتم مخططين ليه. دونك هادشي اللي كاين. شكرا بزاف على الدعم ديالكم، واذا كان عندكم شي اسئله وحدين اخرين او شي حاجه ما ذكرناهاش خليوها لينا في الكومنتس بيلو. ولا شي واحد كاين في اكادير وبغى الكونتاكت ديال المحاميه ديالنا، دونك صيفطوا لينا ايميل وغادي نصيفط لكم لي زانفورماسيون ديالها بيرسونيل. دونك هادشي اللي كاين. شكرا بزاف ونشوفكم في الفيديو الجاي ان شاء الله. باي باي.
Ciao.